Hello students, today we're going to be continuing with algebraic equations in Unit 7. And today we're going to learn about how to multiply and divide with equations. So the notes page that you picked up when you walked in is going to be page number 115 in your math binder. The notes that you did yesterday, make sure that you also add them to your table of contents. I forgot to add that to the video. That was page 114. It was our continuation on addition and subtraction, working with equations. So make sure you get both items in your table of contents. Next, when looking at our notes for the day, at the very top, the top of the notes say one-step equations, multiplication and division. So what we're going to do is quickly review the rules for integer operations so that we can apply them to solving our equations today. So for the first problem here, we've got 30 times, or negative 30 times 5. Remember, we have our little math Dorito that we can use to help us remember what the sign of our answer is going to be. Okay, so when using that math Dorito, what you do is you take the sign of your first number, which is a negative, so we would cover up one of those negatives, and then we would take the sign of our second number, which is a positive, and cover up the positive on my math Dorito there, and the sign that's left, which is another negative, will be the sign of my answer. Okay, a negative times a positive is always going to be a negative because those signs are different. And then we would just do the multiplication like normal. We would do 30 times 5. 5 times 0 is 0, and 5 times 3 is 15. So this would be negative 150. That would be our answer. Okay, moving on to the next one, 30 times negative 5. Again, we can use our math Dorito. Because we are multiplying a negative times a negative, we're left with the positive showing on our math Dorito. So that means that my answer is going to be positive. So when both of my signs match, when I'm multiplying or dividing two positive numbers or two negative numbers, my answer is always going to be positive because my signs are the same. Now I know 30 times 5 is 150 because I just worked that out. So that means that my answer will be a positive 150. Okay. Moving on to division, we can also still use the math Dorito for division. Okay, I've got a negative number divided by another negative number. When my signs match, when they're the same, that means my answer is always going to be positive. Now, 30 divided by 5 is going to be 6 because 5 times 6 equals 30. So therefore, my answer will be a positive 6. And for the last one, I have 30 divided by 5, a negative 30 divided by 5, excuse me. So that's a negative number divided by a positive number. My signs are different, so that means my answer will be negative. And I know 30 divided by 5 is 6, so that answer is going to be a negative 6. All right, after that quick refresh on our integer rules, I want us to go over our rules for solving algebraic equations. So remember, step 1, you're going to isolate the variable by using inverse operations. Inverse operations for multiplication and division are just that. So if you're multiplying, that means you're going to divide. If you're dividing, you're going to multiply. You're going to do the opposite operation, the inverse operation. Then you'll solve by keeping the equation balanced, so whatever you do on one side of the equation, you have to do on the other. And then you're going to check your solution. So, just like what we went over the last couple of days, if you're given a problem like this, negative 4 times x equals 8, the way in which you will solve this problem is you're going to isolate your variable first. So we want that negative 4 that's attached to my x to go away. And the way that you do that is by dividing. Okay, right now it's being multiplied with the x, so to undo multiplication, we're going to divide by the very same number, negative 4. Okay, the reason that this works is because negative 4 over negative 4 is 1. Okay, so that cancels out basically, making that 1x or just x. X is now alone. Now remember, whatever I do on one side of my equation, I also have to do on the other. So I also have to divide 8 by -4. 8 is my top number, so that's going inside of my division box. And my -4 is going to be outside. I know 4 goes into 8 twice. Okay, but I am dividing by a negative number. So it's a positive divided by a negative. So if I use my math Dorito to help me out, if I cover up my positive sign and one of my negative signs, that means that my answer is going to be a negative number, and I already know that 8 divided by 4 is 2. So x equals -2. Okay. Now I can check that answer by plugging in my value for x. So my original equation was -4 times my -2 equals 8. I know 4 times 2 equals 8, so we're good there. And a negative times a negative always equals a positive number. So my x solution was -2. There's -1, -3, okay, and this is my solution here, -2 to this equation. Now I know that that is correct because I just checked my answer. I just checked my work. Okay, so let's keep going with that. For this problem here, this is a division problem. This is x divided by 5 equals -7. Now, the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So what I would do is I would multiply this side by 5 so that those numbers cancel out. And then I would also multiply this side by 5. I'm going to show you why this works, why I'm multiplying by 5. If I'm multiplying by 5, that's 5 over 1 times my 1x over 5, okay? If I do that math, if I work straight across, that's 5x over 5. And a 5x over 5 is the same as 1x, because this cancels out and becomes 1. Okay, so that's why I multiplied by 5. Now, if you don't totally understand that, that's okay, but that's why I multiply both sides by 5, is because I end up getting my x all by itself. These cancel out, okay? So now that x is all alone, I'm going to do my -7 times 5 on the other side. Now I know 7 times 5 is 35. And that's a negative number times a positive number, which means my signs are different, so my answer will always be negative. Okay, I'm going to double check my work here. If I plug in my -35 divided by 5, 35 divided by 5 I know is 7, and a negative number divided by a positive number, my -35 divided by a positive 5 will give me a negative answer. So that's how I know that my solution is correct. So x has to equal -35. Moving on to question number 3. Okay, same idea. I've got x being divided by -3. I like to rewrite my problem so that my variable is always on the left side. Just helps keep things organized. So now, if I want to get rid of this -3 that's dividing my x, the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by the exact same number, -3, on both sides. Okay, my -3's over here cancel out, leaving x all by itself. And whatever I do on one side of my equation, I got to do on the other. So I multiplied my -21 by my -3. That means my answer is going to be a positive, because a negative times a negative equals a positive. And now let's do 21 times 3. 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 2 is 6. So therefore, this would be a positive 63. X equals 63. I'm going to plug that value in to my equation. So 63 divided by -3. Okay, I know a positive divided by a negative will result in a negative number. And I know 63 divided by 3. 3 goes into 6 twice, evenly. If I drop that 3 down, 3 times 1 equals 3. So therefore, I end up with my negative 21. So I know that my 63 is in fact the right answer. Okay. Going back to another multiplication problem. For this problem right here, again, I'm trying to isolate my variable. I'm going to rewrite the equation so that my variable's on the left-hand side. Okay. I want to get x all by itself, and right now it's being multiplied with a negative 6. So to undo that multiplication, I'm going to divide by the same number, negative 6, which is going to cancel out over here, leaving x all by itself. And whatever I do on one side of the equation, I have to do on the other. So I'm going to divide by a negative 6 over here. A negative divided by a negative is going to result in a positive, and 18 divided by 6 is 3, because 6 times 3 equals 18. So x equals 3. I'm going to check my work by plugging in my value for x. Negative 6 times 3. 6 times 3 I know is 18, and a negative times a positive is a negative because my signs are different. So therefore my answer is negative 18. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and finish up questions 5 and 6 on your own, and then put this notes page in your math binder. Have a good rest of your day.